All right. So with that, I guess you can go to your first slide, and I'll introduce you just very briefly. Um, I have to say, so we are totally lucky to have Tracy Teal presenting today about data carpentry. I had the pleasure of seeing her present in February at an SI2 PI meeting, and it's a really cool thing that her organization is doing, and I think that it has a lot of relevancy for us in the world of gateways. So with that, I'll let you take it and go for it.
Great. Thanks so much. Everyone can hear me okay? No
So we
comments
can
that say they can't. So, okay, great.
and we can hear you great.
Flag me if suddenly that doesn't keep going. So thank you so much for asking me to do this webinar. It's great to see the work going on with Science Gateways. And so I'm really happy to have the opportunity to talk with you, and already that you posted questions or things you were interested in. So I've tried to highlight some of those things in the talk, but if you have questions along the way, please speak up, and also there'll be time at the end too. So happy to discuss any of this. So what I'm going to be talking about, I'm the Executive Director of Data Carpentry, and so today I'm going to be talking about software and data carpentry and using training as a way to build a worldwide research community. So software and data carpentry are nonprofit organizations, and we train people in software development and data skills for more effective work and career development. But beyond just thinking about ourselves as a training organization, we build community and local capacity for teaching and learning these skills and perspective. And that community element is really what helps scale the learning, but also the interest and confidence in using these skills in research environments. So we are a global organization. We teach workshops all around the world on 6 continents, not in Antarctica yet. And so I'll talk more about what that means, but along with sort of running these workshops all over the world, we also have communities and instructors all over the world. So what we're trying to talk about here is better programming practices for more effective work and for improved career pathways. So I'm going to be talking a lot about the motivation for teaching these skills in terms of people's current motivations, which are addressing research questions that they have, but also thinking about these skills as creating opportunities for career pathways for people engaged in research that might be academic, but also might not be academic. So these skills are increasingly important as we generate more digital data. So I'm sure, as all of you know, we are just increasing the amount of data that we have. So this is kind of the big data 3V, which is the variety of data. So we're getting a lot of different types of data. The velocity, so we're getting data very quickly, some environments more than others, but you can be getting things at the millisecond level. And then the volume, that tends to be what we think about with big data, which is where we're just getting a lot of it if you do a genomic analysis or image analysis. And it's really stretching our abilities to work with this data, because we really have to transition the way that we work. We can't load something into an Excel spreadsheet. Or even if we can, it's hard to get a handle on the data. So it's a real shift for researchers in how they're approaching their research. And it's not something that most researchers have had the opportunity to learn. It's just not something that has been taught, has been a part of the curriculum. And this kind of issue has been identified, not just anecdotally in the hallways, but by several different reports that have come out of the National Science Foundation and the NIH. This is just one quote from the NSF Advanced Computing Infrastructure report. And talking about new knowledge and skills that will be needed to make effective use of the new systems, architectures, and hardware, as well as being able to make research advances. And one of the things they point out is about domain scientists and them relying on traditional software tools and languages, and now that they need to have access to new knowledge and approaches. And it's not, again, just this high level, top down, everybody should learn these things. Researchers themselves are very interested in learning these skills. So this is a survey from Bioinformatics Resource Australia in 2013. And they said, what's the most useful thing that Brainbowl could do for you? And more than 50% of respondents say offer training. And this is more than the number that say funding, which is, I think, the only time I've ever seen something ranked more highly than funding in any survey. So it's researchers themselves are really looking for these opportunities. So then the question becomes, how do we scale data and software skills along with data production? And so we talk about this sort of duality of building skills and community. And so I'm going to talk about how we're implementing this in software and data carpentry and some of the outcomes from the approach that we're taking. And so this is kind of the framework for what we do. So we have peer-led, hands-on, intensive workshops. Volunteer instructors, so people who teach our workshops are volunteers. Open and collaborative lesson materials, so any work we do around curriculum development is openly available, both for use and for people contributing, and creating and supporting community around workshops, instructors, and curriculum. So our workshops, and I did see some people on this list that are already very familiar with the model. Some instructors, it looks like, on the call here, so they can chime in too on things. So our workshops are 2 days, and they're active learning. So we follow sort of an I-we-you model when we teach, where we introduce a concept. The instructor introduces a concept. We do it as a group, and then you have an opportunity to do it as an exercise yourself. So it's all hands-on, active learning. We give feedback to learners throughout the workshop, so you're sort of not left to your own devices to try stuff out, but you get immediate feedback on how things are going, and we do that through our instructors and our helpers. You can see this is actually our first data carpentry workshop, and you can see here you have the people who are going around. These are helpers helping individuals in their workshops. We have trained instructors, so the people who teach the workshops go through an instructor training program to learn how to do this kind of active style teaching, and also about creating the environment. And we really try to work to create a friendly learning environment. So for a lot of people, computational skills are something that maybe they've tried before, it hasn't gone that well. There's a lot of feelings of sort of lack of confidence around these skills. And so we want to create an environment that's friendly, that onboards people to participate. And we have a code of conduct that we use in all of our workshops to help sort of set the stage for that. But really it comes from our instructors and the tone that they set. So around the content, software carpentry. So software carpentry started in about 2010. That was started a little before, but sort of rebooted and started scaling in 2010. And it's focused on software development best practices. So a lot of people in 2010 and now as well are self-taught programmers, so that we've learned to program on our own. But that means that we don't have a lot of the skills that someone in a sort of an environment in business has around how to do software development. So there's opportunities to be more efficient, things like writing functions or writing more concise code, but also to use some of these best practices like version control with GitHub, command line for better automation, better programming practices in Python or R. So the content in software carpentry focuses on that, and it's with the command line, version control with GitHub, and programming with Python or R. Data carpentry started in 2014, and that came out of seeing this increased need for people working with data in the domain scientists that needed to learn programming sort of specifically to figure out how to work with their data. And so the content for data carpentry is focused around the skills needed to work with a particular data type, and has a domain-specific element because people learn better when they're working with data that they already have, that they're adding these skills to a framework that they have already. And also then when they go back to their lab or their desk and they're looking at data that looks like what you used in the workshop, it makes that skill translation a lot easier. So we develop content in specific domains, and our core workshops, they all sort of they focus on data organization. So really, where do you get started? A lot of the books you see start with really clean data, and then you go back to your data and you look at it and it looks nothing like that nice clean data. So what does it mean? How do you need to structure your data so that you can use it with these computational skills? We want to start sort of from square zero. Data cleaning, again, most data is not necessarily in a place where you can clean it, where you can use it right away. And then we teach data analysis and visualization in R or Python. Is there a question? And so this is a structure around tabular data. We also have ones focused on working with genomic data. It follows the same idea around data organization and data cleaning, but it's working specifically with genomic data. So we talk about actually cloud computing in the command line and automation at the command line, because those are skills that you need in working with genomic data. Geospatial data, we have similar things, but it's talking about using some of the packages around GIS data in R or Python. So we focus both the data set and the tools we teach around specific data sets. And we're working on development in social sciences, and there's kind of a whole other list at various stages of development. So the workshop goals, we talk, of course, we want to teach the skills. So we want people to walk out knowing some of the things that we've taught. But they're really a lot broader than that. And so they're about getting people started and introducing them to what's possible. Before you've been exposed to these skills, a lot of times you don't understand what you can be doing with your data. So it sort of limits the types of questions that you can ask. So we want to help show people what's possible. Build confidence in using these skills, and that sets the stage to encourage people to continue learning. So we can't teach everything in 2 days. So the idea is that you can walk out and keep learning and understand what your next steps are, and have some confidence that you can continue learning. And finally, have a positive learning experience. So a little bit about our instructors. That really is what makes all of this possible. So we have an instructor training program, and it's also a 2-day program, and we train people in how to teach software and data carpentry, but also in sort of the foundations of some of the educational pedagogy that goes with how that is how we teach. So what is it based on? What's the research and education that this is based on? So that instructor training program teaches you how to teach. And we have over 900 instructors on 6 continents. Our curriculum. So our curriculum is all open and collaboratively developed. So it's all on GitHub. It's with a CC BY license, so anybody can use, remix these lessons. And when I say collaboratively developed, that means that anybody can contribute. So not only could someone identify something and say, oh, I see a typo, or I think you should reorder what, maybe this should be taught in a different order, or we should teach this new package. But also people can actively suggest changes through the GitHub pull request process. And so there's continual improvement around the lessons, and they're also kept up to date because if things do change, we can make those changes. So this is kind of, I'll show a little bit more in a minute, but this is sort of what one of the lessons look like around programming with Python. And we have different episodes for each of our lessons, instructor guides about how to use them. And here you can see this improve this page. So that's a link to be able to contribute to the lessons. And so this model around collaborative lesson development also means that not everybody is trying to reinvent their own lesson, especially now as we really are kind of in this space where so many people need to be learning the same things. There's sort of no point in reinventing the wheel. And so we might as well sort of collaboratively develop things that we can teach together. Also consistently improve because you get to keep teaching them. Different people keep teaching them. Whereas if you have something in a course, you teach it once, you put it on the shelf, you pick it up again the next year and you remember all the things that you wish you had changed, but you don't get as many chance to iterate. So I let's see how this works. So I'm going to show you just a little bit of a video of an example of some live coding in a workshop. So, uh-oh, yeah. So first, I'm going to show you the lesson that this is based off of. Okay, so this is, I talked about our lessons. This is an example of a lesson. So you can see here, there's all sort of these different sections. This says how long they should take. And so we're going to go to this loops here, for instance. Here's this lesson. So we start out with learning objectives for each lesson. And then these are sort of the notes. These are available for people in the class to refer to, but they're also notes for the instructor. So you can see these code blocks. And so these are the things that the instructor is going to type out and do with the class. And then you can see that also that there are, all the way at the bottom, some exercises here. And those are the things that people would go through on their own. So I'm going to show you a video of someone teaching this section of a lesson. And someone tell me, I don't know if you'll be able to hear.
You know, if we can't hear it at all.
Well, I haven't started yet.
No, but I mean, once it does start. Yeah.
Oh, you can't hear it? Okay, well, can you
no,
see
I don't
the
know
text?
Yet. Oh, yeah, we can see the subtitles. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'll stop that there. But so some elements there that you can see that they're using, you can see that there's the people in the classroom that have their computers that are typing this command themselves. He's live coding at the front of the room, right? So he's not just showing slides. He's showing the code as he types it, and then explaining the output as it goes. You saw at the beginning, he talked about sticky notes. That's a way that we use to get feedback on if people are having problems or if they've completed exercise. So it gives real-time feedback during the workshop. So this just sort of highlights some of the strategies that we use for teaching. It's a little hard to get total sense without being so then the element of community. So the workshops is one element, but what we've really ended up with software and data carpentry, and why we're talking about sort of training as a way to build a global community, is it's a group of people excited about software and data skills and about sharing them with others. So that's really our volunteer community, are people who either have struggled to learn things on their own and don't want others to have to go through it, or really have done this and seen the power of it and want to share it with others. We actually have a lot of people who go through workshops and then become instructors. And so it's kind of creating this set of people who are excited about things. It also, because we work with these open source tools, and the ethos around software and data carpentry is open. We also sort of are helping to promote the ideas around reproducible research and open science. So we don't sort of specifically advocate for open science per se, but in our workshops we do talk about reproducible research, and we talk about reproducible research in the sense that you should do these things like comment your code or use version control for future you. So, 6 months from now, when you can't remember your code or where you put those files, if you've used these practices, then you can remember them, because the you of 6 months ago is terrible at answering email. And so this community sort of has this ethos too about reproducible research, and open science and open data. That's building a community about how we practice digital research. And we help to foster this. We have a mentoring program and instructor onboarding. So as people go through instructor training, we help mentor people through their first workshops. We have consistent discussion groups and community calls, email lists, and then also our instructors. Sometimes they teach at their own institutions, but we get workshop requests, again, all over the world. And so people have the opportunity to go teach at other universities. So they meet other people there. That they teach with or in their classroom, but also just other professors. So it's a good professional development activity as well. So then the question is whether, does this work? Has this had an impact? What can 2 days really do for you? So both our short-term surveys, the ones that people take right at the end of a workshop, and our long-term survey, which is people that took a workshop 6 months or before, show that people are learning the skills, putting them into practice in their work, and have more confidence in their ability to do computational work. So these are just a couple quotes from the long-term survey. So the tools I learned in my carpentry workshop helped me to reshape my workflow, improving ability to share code and data, help facilitate understanding of the problems, are useful for training their own team, right? So a lot of people learn them and take them back to their group. And so we do have sort of all career stages who are taking these workshops. You can see the most are graduate students, but we also have a lot of postdocs, academic research staff, some people in industry, faculty, not as many undergraduates. Right now, our workshops are tailored for people who are active researchers, meaning they have data. Those people are very motivated because they have the data and they're frustrated. So they come because they're motivated by frustration. Undergraduates are motivated to attend these in a slightly different way. And that requires a little bit of a difference in how you present the material. But we still have some undergraduates who come. And so people like the workshop. So these are some responses around whether the workshop was worth their time or if they would recommend it to a friend or colleague. So people agree and strongly agree that the workshop was worth their time and that they would recommend the workshop to a friend or colleague. There's skills, confidence, and practical use, all some of our workshop goals. We can see that learners programming before attending a carpentry workshop versus after changes pretty dramatically from people really more on the spectrum around monthly, less than once a year, to a shift of people programming daily or weekly. And we don't have that many people really that are saying that they are not using these tools. Also, really importantly, a change in confidence. So even 6 months after a workshop, this confidence persists. We see this uptick in confidence right after the workshops, but people continue to feel more confident than they were before they took the workshop. And these are some things that they say about the workshops. So you see really big words here, instructors. Again, right, this community, this is the real strength of the program. Good data, helpful people, right? So it's actually kind of interesting to see around something that's about technical content, so many words really relating to people, right, and help and friendliness, rather than as much focus on kind of the technical words or the tools. Oh, so sorry. So this is so we talked a little bit about the confidence. This is about things other than just the confidence. So this is people's perception of the carpentry workshops. Again, more than 6 months after they took it, how are they still viewing that experience? So people agree about the positive atmosphere, good materials. They've recommended to a friend. They are using the skills, was worth their time, and the information was useful for practical implementation in their work. So this is quote, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And so that's really how we're thinking about it. We're kind of trying to build not just something that's a one-off workshop, but a sustainable program that helps people learn and keep learning together. And that's what's going to create this sort of global community and also allow these kinds of learning to scale and be sustainable. Um, so if this is something that you're interested in, and I have plenty of time for questions, so I'm happy to talk about things. Some of the things to do, so one is to host a workshop. So if you're interested in hosting a workshop, and I saw a couple people said they might be interested, on our website, and Data Carpentry or Software Carpentry, we have a request a workshop form. What it means is if you fill out that workshop request form, we'll find instructors and we'll match volunteer instructors to your institution, and they will come and they will teach a 2-day workshop. And so you basically need to coordinate local logistics and have a room for them to teach in for 2 days, which is, as you know, space at universities is really the hardest part. And then we can take up to 40 people per workshop. It's good if you have at least 15 because then there's more of an environment that people can work together. But most of our workshops, if you do have space for 40, they do fill up and have wait lists. So if it's possible for the space to have 40, then that's usually great. If it's something where that's a great way just to try it out. See if it's something that makes sense for your campus. If people are interested, if the content matches what you think people need to learn. But if you already know that this is something that either you've had workshops before, one of the next steps is to become a member organization. And that means that we're helping to build local capacity at your university. So we'll run an instructor training event for people at your university so that you have local instructors that can teach software and data carpentry. But also what we find is that people go through instructor training, they are excited about teaching other things, maybe more specific skills, and they put into practice the things that they use in instructor training in their other teaching. And again, you know, they're people that are pretty community oriented. So some are involved in helping to start like our users groups or meetups or those sorts of things too. And we try to support that. So it helps build the local capacity at your university. If you are just at a university and maybe there's not opportunity to be members, you can sign up if you're interested in becoming an instructor trainer just yourself. That's not a program that we've had a lot of space in before, just because we've had so many obligations through member organizations, but we're trying to scale that program as well. So we have a Become an Instructor page on our website too. And I always forget this, we have a newsletter. So here, I'll just show you the whole join page, the Software Carpentry page. Get involved here, join us. So if you say join our mailing list, we have a once a month newsletter, so that'll keep you updated on what you need to, just sort of what's going on. If you are interested in becoming an instructor, there. So this is an instructor training form, and then also around become a partner with that on the Data Carpentry site. I should know these things. We put them in different places. So here on the Data Carpentry, get involved, become a member organization, become an instructor newsletter. That's a little more straightforward. So here's information about becoming a member organization, becoming an instructor, and the information about where you can sign up and get the newsletter information. So those are sort of the places to start. Workshops, request a workshop. Kind of the overview. So I want to thank you so much for this opportunity to be here. I'd love to talk about maybe there's alignment too with other activities that Science Gateway is doing. We have support from the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation, and Data Carpentry started out of some work across the National Science Foundation biocenters. So we want to thank them for their support as well. This is the last slide that I'm supposed to put up. So it's not over, though. I will take questions.
So
maybe
there are a couple questions actually.
Okay. Should I stop sharing my screen? Or you want me to leave this up
leave
here?
that there for the moment. Yeah,
Okay.
that would probably be good. One question that came through was how do additional topics get added to the set of offerings? It also said how do additional instructors, but I assume that's the volunteers signing up to become an instructor.
Yeah, so the instructor one is easier, so I'll take that one first. So the way that people become instructors is, one, you can sign up, just you personally want to be an instructor, and you can fill out that I'm interested in becoming an instructor. We have about 500 people on that list right now, and we haven't been able to meet that capacity, but we have a new instructor trainer, so we're trying to help get some of those people through that program, but also through being a member organization, then we schedule those events, so that sort of prioritizes your training. So if you sign up as a member organization, so that's how we help get new instructors. What we're really interested in too is getting more instructors and diversifying our instructor pool, sort of all versions of diversity. So geographic, underrepresented groups. So also we have programs to reach out to those different communities too, to kind of grow those instructor pools in those different regions. Does that answer that question? And then I'll go on to the lessons one.
Nancy, I don't know if you want to unmute yourself and say whether that answered the question or not.
Yeah, thanks. That answers the instructor question. Thanks, Tracy.
Okay, great. Yeah, I can't see any of you. It's very odd. Okay, so about lessons, thank you. Yeah, that's a really good question. With the Moore Foundation funding, that gave us funding to develop in the life and physical sciences. So you saw that's been our focus so far. We have a group that in particular is starting to do some work on social sciences. So really, it's about having some funding, because as much as these are collaborative efforts, there does need to be some committed paid time, some staff time to do some work, just in coordinating people, even if you have all volunteers, just coordinating those activities, making decisions. So there's kind of personnel resources committed to the project, and then also interested from the community. So we have a good sense of what people are interested in. So if you send us an email and you're like, oh, I'm really interested in, humanities or social science, we can say, yes, a bunch of other people are interested in that too. And that helps put it high on our roadmap. And we do have a lesson roadmap. It's a little bit, if you go to our data carpentry lessons roadmap for lesson development, it has that information. So no one's really gone through this sort of lesson proposal process, mainly because when we're doing it, we're writing it into grants. So we write grants as a part of a project to get funding to do these sorts of things. So we haven't kind of had anyone just come to us and just write a proposal and do lesson development. And where we help and, we want to support, we do curriculum development, we're committing to teaching it, maintaining it. And so we work with people to help put things in sort of the right way. So we've done a lot of lesson development. So we can help, and in fact are very involved in helping bring any new lessons into the curriculum. So far too, we've focused on 2 days, but we want to expand that to have lessons that are just like a half day or things like that too. Maybe stuff that wouldn't be taught in a 2-day curriculum, but having a suite of lessons that follow the same sort of model around, having learning objectives and this IWU and exercises that people could use in other settings if it makes sense, if there's less interest in a particular module. Does that help answer that question?
Yeah, it does. Thanks. I mean, I was thinking of kind of gateway building modules and how, if we have instructors with the knowledge, how we might benefit from the type of training that Software and Data Carpentry offers, where, the lessons are structured in a certain way, and there's a certain way of doing things that's very effective. And so us being able to learn that and then also kind of contribute back that new expertise around gateway building. So I can talk to you offline, but it'd be interesting to think about what we might do there.
Yeah, thanks. And we do have a template. Like, so we do have, you can see this is our template for lessons. So if you're starting a new lesson, it's basically, start with this template and then fill it in. And having that template available really makes a big difference in thinking about how you're going to structure your content. So it's kind of a nice framework too.
Yeah, that's great. Would you mind popping that into the chat? It's a little hard to read the full URL. Thanks, Tracy.
So thanks for that answer. So there's 2 questions from guest 3, who's a mystery person. And the first question was, when you were talking about active learning, you used an acronym. It was I something you, and we weren't quite sure what it was.
Yes.
I didn't hear it quite either. What was it? In the middle.
I, we, you. Yeah, I just have seen all the chats. Yeah, so it's not an acronym. It's I, and then we, and then you. So the idea, and this is not something we invented. We invented none of this, right? We're actually slow to using a lot of the things they already do in educational research. But the idea is that, I, as an instructor, present a concept, we do it together, and then you try it on your own.
That makes sense. Yeah, you did say that we do it as a group, and I thought maybe it was IGU or something, like.
Yeah, no, totally.
Group does it, you do it, but yeah. Great. And then you can see there's a question about requesting attendees to install software before workshop or during. And then there's a second question there about the Python ecosystem.
Okay, so installing things, yes. So we send out a couple emails in advance asking people to install software. So that's a really good question, right? So we want people to use their own computers. And we want them to install things, because we want people to walk away with their computer set up to be able to do this. We tried at some points using things like virtual machines, but then people felt like they just used it there, and then when they went back to their own data, they didn't feel like it was an environment that they could work on. So we're very invested in having people with their computers set up to do the work, not only during the workshop, but after. So before every workshop, we do send instructions on how to, make sure you install everything before you get there. And I'm just going to pull up. Maybe this is set up. So let's look at the software carpentry Python lesson, for example, since there's questions. So each lesson, you'll see when we send out the thing about a workshop website, we have the setup instructions, but within each lesson, they talk about setup. So we provide these setup instructions. So they talk about the data that you need to download. That just talks about, okay. And then here, you should have installed Anaconda, right? So this is a template of a workshop. And so at the end, there's always information on how to do the setup. So for Windows, we actually have an all-in-one installer, but we use Anaconda for Python. And so sometimes people do show up and they don't have stuff installed. And it's okay, if we can spend a few minutes and get them up to speed. But if someone's really taking a lot of time to get something installed that they didn't try before the workshop, we'll have them work with the person next to them, and then at the first break, work with them to try and get stuff installed. Right. So we recommend Anaconda for Python. That's like the only thing that works. And it does all the packages too. You had a question about the Jupyter Notebook. Was that the question?
No, they were wondering about.
The Python, a particular distribution. Yeah, the Anaconda is definitely what we recommend. And we teach Python free.
So currently there are no questions from the rest of the group, but I had some questions. When someone hosts, how much does it cost for you to send the person, or does that volunteer have to pay their travel, or do you cover expenses like that?
So great, yeah. So if you request a workshop, so we have a $2,500 workshop coordination fee. So that goes to us to cover staff time around workshop coordination, but of course, like this whole infrastructure. And then you, as a university, will cover the instructor travel. So we say that you should budget, between $800 $1,500 for instructor travel. So we'll always try to find someone that's close to you. Sometimes we can find someone, that actually even at your university or within driving distance. Sometimes people will have to fly, but we try to keep those costs down. So we say to budget for a workshop, if you don't really have any travel expenses, 2,500 up to about 4,000 for the instructor travel. So we don't handle the travel for our instructors. That's set up between the instructors and the host university.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, because otherwise we know how university paperwork goes. That's all that we would do. No, it just to set things up directly, and every university does that differently. And but I mean, in general, I think universities are very good at bringing people to universities to do things like give talks, so people are usually set up pretty well to do that with instructors.
So there was another question that came in, or maybe it was there and I just didn't see it. And I think it was Randy asking, what about Jupyter? Do you use it?
Yeah, so we do use Jupyter notebooks to teach. So for those not familiar, so Python is a programming language, and then Jupyter is an environment that you can use to run Python. Actually, Jupyter, you can run different types of languages. So it's a notebook, and that doesn't really look like it's basically a web. It's something through your browser, and you can write the code in and run the code kind of in your browser. And so it's really powerful for data exploration, and it's a nice way to present data. So, for instance, the LIGO project, which was studying gravitational waves, when they published their paper, they also published these Jupyter notebooks, which had the code and the output of the code all together in one document. So it's really neat way to display data, show both the code and the results. And so we do teach Python in that Jupyter environment. One, because it's a valuable thing to know that Jupyter, it's kind of getting broadly adopted in the research community. But it's also a nice way to teach Python because it has that interactive element where you can type in the code and run the code and then see the output kind of all in the same place, which is different than if you're trying to write Python code in like Emacs or some other editor and then have to run the code and then have the output. Are there questions about how that goes?
Well, there was a question about where does the instructor training take place, and is there also a cost for that?
Yep. So instructor training. So we have levels of membership. We have gold and silver and bronze too, but that doesn't have any instructor training. So a gold partnership is for 15 people at your institution, and we'll do that often in person. So we'll come to your university and do instructor training in a room like a regular workshop. The silver membership is for 6 people. And we do that online. And so what that means is that your 6 people still can get together, or they can do it in different places, but it's nice if they get together. But the instructor is remote. So the instructor is like me, like a webinar. And so they teach from a remote location. It's still really interactive. When you saw kind of that live coding, we actually use it's called live ether padding. So we, type questions and get responses through these interactive documents. There's a lot of paired work where people are practicing doing the instructor training. So it still has that interactive element to it. We use the same thing in instructor training as in our workshops, but the instructor is not in the room with you. There is a cost to that for the membership fees.
Is that synchronous then, or because it sounded like maybe you give people, when you're training them, they do some stuff on their own, and then, or is it that they're actually all happening on the same at the same time?
It's synchronous. We've tried it being asynchronous and more like a MOOC, like you can do it whenever you want. But that didn't have that same interactive element, which is really important just for being able to practice teaching and getting questions answered. So it is synchronous. So it's the same thing. You set aside 2 days and you go through the instructor training program. So this is the information like on the member. So you can see here around memberships, bronze, silver, gold, coordinated workshops, number of instructors training, right? So 6 online, 15. So the silver partnership is 7,500 and the gold is 15,000. So it just depends sort of how many people you want to train. Some people have some kind of a pathway is that some people are starting out with silver to see what kind of demand they have at their university. And then actually we're seeing a lot of people transition to gold because once they get started with a few workshops, there starts to be more demand, but you definitely want to, understand that on your campus. Right. So that's one way of figuring out what it would look like at your university. And we have an email too, like if you just want to ask questions about that, I think it's like, whoops, well now we have an email address here. It's like partners at carpentries.org. So if you send that an email, we can follow up with any questions too.
I'm curious. Earlier, you were showing the Software Carpentry website, and obviously you're connected with them, and the look of the websites are similar, other than the color scheme. So I was wondering, what is your relationship with them, or is
Yeah. So we're separate organizations, and that's really just more historical than anything else. We coordinate around everything around instructor training and partnerships. And in fact, we're going through discussions about being one organization right now. So yeah, the two websites is a little confusing in terms of like exactly where there's some redundant information. But we operate as a single organization. Where we differ really is in the curriculum.
That's interesting. So you operate as one organization, just the websites are separate. Ah, that's interesting.
Yeah, well, and it's because when we started as data carpentry, we sort of didn't sort of realize the reach that it would have, and so we just sort of set it up as a different curriculum stack. And so it sort of got started off that way. And so we had websites really around lesson content that was different than software carpentries, but we've always been working with them, following the same workshop model, coordinating workshops together, same instructor training model. So we've been working together from the start. We just kind of started off with different web homes and a little bit different people working on different projects. But now we're trying to bring that together just for the sake of clarity and efficiency too. Although we really operate as one. We have different steering committees.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we have to have data.
That's the biggest thing, right? Governance is slightly different. So.
Mm-hmm.
Which affects me, but not, like in the sense of it affects, but not as much the community.
Right. Well, we have time for more questions if anybody wants to either unmute themselves and just pipe up with a question, or you can type in a question. I'll give folks a minute to contemplate questions. But if not, certainly do try to do our evaluation, which takes very little time to give us feedback about the session. There's a link in the chat, as well as the one that you saw when Tracy was.
Oh, here. Sorry, I'll go back to my screen there. There it is. This one.
Yeah,
feedback is very important. You can see how we use our feedback. People who do things like feedback. So let them know if you like this. Yes. And there's new ones coming up. So, I think, as a speaker, I don't get to hear as much from you what you're interested in and how it could align with what you're interested. So I'm happy to talk about any of that if you want to send me a note or talk about, what opportunities are with Science Gateways for running workshops if people are connected there. We are doing things like with the Big West, the West Big Data Hub and the South Big Data Hub. So these kind of bigger entities, and thinking about helping them, with their training programs, even within a network. Because again, it's about not reinventing wheels, right? So if there's things that each other are doing, to partner where it makes sense to do those sorts of things. And the title of this too was about using training to build a worldwide research community. And I sort of tried to emphasize that that's been an outcome of this training program, because we're getting more people with shared perspective, people that have gone through these programs together, or be joined, had a pathway to go from learner to teacher. And that's really kind of been an unintended consequence. But when we talk about kind of culture change and bottom up change around the way we work with data and our practices around working with data, it's really been really effective, and in a surprising way, not in a way that we intended. And it has this peer element because it's all peer teaching, right? People who are using the skills teaching other people. And so people really have a shared understanding of what they're trying to do. So I see that in the Science Gateways community as well. And I think there's a lot of programs like this, and plugging training in seems to really help build that community and keep people together. So
Yeah, that's definitely a theme that came up at the meeting where you presented, in terms of how do you grow your community, and many people said you grow it by teaching people how to use your software, and that's
absolutely,
how you
yeah.
fans, if they have to, maybe they can happily struggle through themselves to figure it out, and hopefully it's designed well enough not to struggle, but offering training can really bring people in.
And there's a lot. I mean, that talk was about software, and you can write amazing software, but if it doesn't have documentation or people can't learn how to use it, then it's not going to get adoption. So training is what also drives adoption of tools, either training or like some feature that nothing else has. So you have to use whatever data format they require. So it's a great way of onboarding people with new tools that you're excited about too.
Yeah. Well, since nobody's thrown any more questions into this chat, I'll say we'll say that we're done. But I just want to thank you again, Tracy, for putting this together. I feel like I know a lot more about data carpentry than I did before from that other presentation, so that was really fun to learn about more. And I look forward to hearing more about what develops with data carpentry and software carpentry all together.
The carpentries, yeah.
The carpentry people, yeah. And then I'll just mention also that next month our webinar is a gateway showcase. So we've done one of these so far, and this is our second, and there will be a half an hour each on each of these two gateways. One is vector based, and the other one is sitsci.org. And we'll have an abstract up about those in a week or two up on our website, and we'll be sending out notices about that. So if you haven't yet joined our newsletter to learn about what we offer, I would say go to our website. You'll see a connect with us link, and you can sign up for the newsletter there. Beyond that, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I don't think so. So thank you so much, Tracy.
Well, thank you so much for having me.